To me, this is one of the best RPG genres. Action RPGs are super addictive, and when they have hack and slash, it gets even better. Luckily on Android, we might have some of the best games in the world in this style, and I'm not even exaggerating. If you want to discover them, drop a like and come with me. If you like open world action RPGs, Wuthering Waves is one of the most impressive and also one of the best in the genre. In the game, you wake up as the rover in a post-apocalyptic world full of mysteries and creatures called tacit discords, while trying to recover your memories and understand what happened. The combat gameplay is one of the best out there. From the same universe as Punishing Grey Raven, it delivers exciting action with combos and many cool abilities. It's the kind of game where I could spend all day defeating NPCs. If you enjoy exploration, stylish combat and character progression, this one is a must-try. One of the best mobile RPGs simply has everything a game needs to be good. Now let's talk about where winds meet. In gameplay, the highlight is the Wuxia style combat with fast movements, special abilities, different weapons, and even techniques like walking on water and moving across rooftops, bringing huge freedom and exploration. The game takes place in ancient China, and even being online, it has a very good story worth following. It mixes realistic elements with almost supernatural abilities, creating unique situations in combat and the open world. Where winds meet is definitely one of the most interesting games of 2026 in this style. Trials of Mana is exciting for those who enjoy a JRPG while also wanting something offline and still an action RPG. Let's talk about it now. Unlike most on this list, it focuses more on classic action and combat, feeling like you're playing an offline game, and that's because it originally comes from an older console generation. The game follows different heroes with interconnected stories, where you choose your protagonist and go on a journey to save the world from evil forces. It has great replayability, letting you play with up to 6 characters to fully understand the story. The only real downside is its price. It took a while, but it finally arrived. An anime-style game, and honestly one of the best anime adaptations for this kind of gameplay. Watch your back. Solo Leveling Arise follows the story of Sung Jin-woo, a weak hunter who gains a unique ability to evolve without limits after a mysterious event, starting his journey to become the strongest. The gameplay works just like the anime, where you select 3 characters, enter dungeons, defeat enemies, and earn items and money. Without a doubt, the best part is the super smooth gameplay and insane combat. The difference here is the crazy progression, where every upgrade truly changes your power, giving that addictive feeling of constantly getting stronger. 7 Deadly Sins Origin is another game that a lot of mobile players were waiting for, and it's currently getting a lot of attention. The game takes place in the universe of a famous anime, bringing a new story within this world with both known and original characters. It's hard not to compare it to something like Genshin Impact, since it has a similar open world, character switching, and even a comparable visual style. One of the most interesting things about it is the co-op mode, where you can even play the story mode together with other players, something most games don't offer. For me, this is truly the best in the genre. The game delivers a gameplay that surpasses almost every other game out there. Let's talk about Punishing Grey Raven. In gameplay, the combat is extremely fluid and reflex-based, with a unique orb system that triggers skills depending on the combination, making everything more strategic and stylish. The story is about the punishing virus, but honestly, I skipped all the dialogues just to destroy more robots with my characters. The combat is so satisfying that every correct move gives you a real dopamine hit. Even as a mobile game, it goes head to head with and can surpass many AAA hack and slash games on PC. Known as one of the few true mobile Souls-likes, PASCAL stands out with both its action gameplay and its story. The game takes place in a world covered in darkness, where you follow different characters searching for the truth behind a mysterious fog that consumes everything. And of course, my favorite is Terrence. The combat is fully inspired by Souls-like games, focusing on dodging, stamina management, and precise attacks requiring strategy in every fight. The most interesting part is the overall quality, with console-level graphics, a great soundtrack, and a deeper story than usual on mobile. Even though it's from 2018, it's still very worth playing today. If you like Diablo, especially Diablo Immortal, but want something offline, ONIRO is what you're looking for. This game is really impressive when it comes to its RPG systems. It has one of the most complex character building systems on this list, letting you shape your character in many different ways however you want. The game takes place in a dreamlike world full of symbolism, where you explore mysterious areas, fight creatures, and uncover pieces of the story. It clearly takes inspiration from Diablo, but with its own originality and fully offline. Often called the anime GTA, this game is actually much more of an open world action RPG focused on a modern metropolis.
Route secure.
NEVERNESS to EVERNESS is the newest sensation right now, but for mobile enthusiasts, it's clear that it's not really GTA, it's closer to an action RPG set in a massive open city. It feels like a mix between Genshin Impact and a city sandbox with cars, bikes, and tons of activities to do, but it goes far beyond that with a well-built story and potentially one of the strongest narratives in this style of game. And as you can see, at the same time, it still delivers a solid action RPG experience. A new game that released very recently is getting a lot of attention because of its combat and story. The game takes place in a vibrant world full of creatures and charismatic characters where they need to discover what is happening to monsters that were once calm but are now attacking everyone. In gameplay, the combat is real-time with flashy abilities, character switching, and high mobility, creating a very dynamic pace during fights. The game mixes an open-world feel with solid action gameplay. Even if it may seem a bit generic at first, it becomes very addictive with its monsters and the story is well done. Maybe the first truly cooperative game on our list, let's talk about a new one called HELLGUARD. The game puts you in a world dominated by demonic forces where you face hordes of enemies while evolving your character and surviving challenges. The story is mostly just a background for playing with others. It works kind of like a Diablo style game where you enter dungeons, defeat different NPCs, get loot and level up your character. The focus is fast combat with area skills, constant progression, and that loop of entering stages, defeating enemies and getting stronger. Being fully 3D also makes a big difference. Game of Thrones KINGSROAD has such a unique combat system that it's hard to even fit it into a single category. Unlike many other Game of Thrones games, here you create your own unique character, so you don't need to know the story from the books or the show. At the same time, it still works for fans since some familiar characters also appear. The game impresses in many aspects, especially visually, and the combat feels similar to a Souls-like. It's honestly hard to find a flaw that would make you stop playing, which is why it's one of the most profitable games today. This is an action RPG with a very unique mechanic that even manages to innovate in its gameplay. Let's talk about Duet Night Abyss.
Your final call. Stay put as you should.
Honestly, I found the story a bit tiring and not very innovative. I like the characters, but a world falling into chaos isn't something new. In gameplay, the highlight is the mix of melee combat with firearms along with extremely fluid movement, jumps, aerial combos, and a lot of freedom during fights. The difference is creating combos using both guns and swords to defeat enemies. It's a well-made game. If you like fast-paced action with style and mobility, this one is definitely worth keeping an eye on. We couldn't leave this one out. Maybe one of the most played today. Let's talk about Diablo Immortal. The story takes place between the events of Diablo 2 and 3, where you face demonic forces while trying to stop the world from being corrupted again. But even if you've never played the others, you can still understand it just fine. The gameplay is that familiar style, that choose your class, enter dungeons, and evolve your character. But unlike others we mentioned, this is more of an action RPG and not really a hack and slash. The most interesting part is the strong multiplayer focus with raids, events, and constant interaction with other players, keeping the endgame very active. If there's one game that couldn't be left out, it's definitely Devil May Cry. Let's talk about Devil May Cry Peak of Combat, which has been kind of forgotten. The game follows iconic characters like Dante in an action-packed story against demonic forces, keeping that classic vibe from the series. The gameplay stays true to other Devil May Cry titles with aerial combos and fast-paced action. You can switch weapons, use abilities, and chain attacks very smoothly, creating insane sequences during fights. However, on Android, it wasn't very well received and became one of the lowest rated games on this list. Still, I think it's worth trying. It actually feels like a solid game. A game that's kind of hidden on TapTap and many people don't know about is this one called Dark Raider. This Souls-like is really impressive and very difficult. That's what stands out the most. Every wrong move can easily get you killed. To be honest, I don't remember much about the story and I don't think it has a strong focus on it. From what I recall, it feels much more like a roguelike. The most interesting part is this roguelike style where dying is part of the progress, pushing you to try again stronger and better each time. A game that is both an MMORPG and an action RPG, let's talk about Crystal of ATLAN. The combat is what really stands out with real-time action, aerial combos, flashy abilities, and very fluid movement, reminding a lot of more modern action games. Honestly, this is another game where I didn't follow the story much. I don't even really know what's going on there, but it's the kind of game where I could spend hours defeating NPCs with my abilities because it feels so good. The most interesting part is the verticality of the fights with air attacks and combo sequences that make combat much more dynamic than usual. Bleach Soul Resonance is exciting for fans and delivers a solid action RPG even for those who never watched the anime. The game follows Ichigo Kurosaki, a young man who gains Shinigami powers and starts fighting hollows while protecting the human world. It released alongside the new Bleach adaptation, and the fluid combat is definitely its highlight, with character switching making it even better. The most interesting part is its fidelity to the original material, with classic moves, transformations, and a visual style that feels like a playable episode. If you enjoy anime with stylish combat and lots of action, this one is a great pick. One of the most underrated on this list, but also one of the most beautiful, let's talk about Blade of God X. The game takes place in a world inspired by Norse mythology, where you face gods, monsters, and giant creatures while following a heavy story full of choices. One interesting thing is that it features maps focused only on bosses with high difficulty. The combat follows a Souls-like style with well-timed dodges, heavy attacks, and precision, plus combos that make fights more intense. Unlike others, you need to think carefully before attacking or defending. The most interesting part is the decision system, which can change the story and even your character's development. ARKNIGHTS ENDFIELD for me has become better than Genshin Impact. It really impresses with its details, and of course, let's talk about it now. The game takes place on a new planet where you lead a team to explore unknown territories while facing threats and expanding your base. The gameplay isn't as fluid as Wuthering Waves, but it's also not as stiff as a Souls-like. It sits in the middle, which makes it enjoyable, and it's one of those games that does everything it proposes very well. From combat to the open world and even the story, it's top tier. If you want a game with more strategic depth without losing action, this one has a lot of potential. This one is for those who enjoy a more classic party-based RPG like the ones from 2012. Let's talk about ARALON Forge and Flame. The game takes place in a fantasy open world where you can explore different areas however you want. Even though it's an older game, it gives you total freedom and solid character building. You can explore freely, accept quests, upgrade skills, and fight enemies in real-time combat with a very traditional RPG feel. Even being old, it's still worth playing today. It's not a hack and slash and the combat isn't very fluid, but the freedom it offers is impressive. You won't find this game on the Play Store. It's a shame it was removed, but it's still a solid Souls-like. Let's talk about ANIMUS standalone. Unlike many on this list, the gameplay is very tactical, where one mistake can get you killed. With heavy attacks, well-timed dodges, and real punishment for errors, it demands patience and skill. I believe the story is quite limited since the game was never fully finished on Android and never got a proper ending, which is a big downside. Even so, the most interesting part is that despite being mobile, it keeps that fair difficulty and slow progression, where every victory truly matters. You could say Aether is quite simple but extremely addictive in its combat. Let's talk about it now.
Poseidon is a modifier specializing in healing. She can heal injury.
The combat is real-time with a strong focus on action, precise dodges, special abilities, and character switching, but with a twist. You control one character while the AI handles the rest of the team. It tried to compete with Punishing Grey Raven, but with its own differences, which made it unique. The game takes place in a virtual world where humanity transferred its consciousness to survive, and you lead a group called Modifiers to fight threats within this system. It's simple and easy to understand, yet very addictive. This is one of the forbidden games on the Play Store, and just by looking at it, you already know why. Let's talk about action TAIMANIN. Even though the game has many other focuses, people often forget that it's also an action RPG. One of the main reasons to play it is the fan service with its female characters, but it still has several cool aspects. The game takes place in a modern world with supernatural elements, where you control ninja warriors who fight demons and criminal organizations in action-packed missions. Just remember, if you install it on your phone, that you didn't hear about it from me. And that's it for today's video. Now I'll tell you in comments which game you liked it the most. See you next time.